All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series 86 Perceptor. Yeah, this is a figure that I've been excited about for a while. I feel like it's been ages since I've gotten a new Perceptor figure. I think the last one that I had was the Reveal the Shield, I think it was, Perceptor, the one that turned into like the science van rather than the microscope. And yeah, I skipped the Titans Return version just because I don't know. I really didn't like the idea of Perceptor being a headmaster. And like, some of those Titans Return figures you could kind of like, if you really wanted to, you could kind of like customize them so that they would be proper figures that weren't headmasters. But with Perceptor, his like the scope for his microscope mode went like right over the socket where his head was supposed to attach. So like it was really no getting around it. And I knew that they'd do another Perceptor figure that was, accurate and not a headmaster eventually down the line. And yeah, here we have him. Studio Series 86 has delivered yet again. And yeah, he looks great in his microscope mode. I mean, well, he looks accurate in his microscope mode, I'll say. Like, it looks good, but, the microscope mode for Perceptor has always been a little bit goofy. Like, pretty much just him with his legs folded down. It's kind of a weird, funky sci-fi microscope. Doesn't really look like a real microscope, but that's fine. It's accurate to what it's supposed to be. In terms of like the detailing here, he does have these dials, which are nice. They're part of the mold and painted, so they don't rotate or anything like that, which would have been nice, but not the end of the world. In terms of articulation, you can obviously move the scope up and down like that. It's on a bit of a soft detent, which is nice. In terms of storage for his weapon, the back of the box just shows him like pegging it onto the side here, and I don't think that looks particularly good. He does have a peg hole in the back here, and if you peg it in, you have to kind of do it a bit of an angle if you want to peg it in fully. But if you just like peg it in partially, you can kind of angle it up so it sits like that. Not the end of the world. It's relatively good enough weapon storage either way. It's just not as elegant as it could be, but that's okay. I've never really thought of Perceptor as a guy who would really carry around a gun anyway, because like, he's kind of a science nerd, and if you need him to have a gun, he does have this huge cannon on his shoulder in robot mode, regardless if it's supposed to be a firearm or not. It's there, so whatever. But yeah, that does store like that. In terms of comparisons, for a standard size comparison, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, which is a car next to a giant microscope, so whatever in terms of how that scales. In terms of other like objects transformers, here he is with Netflix Soundwave in his alt mode, and then here he is with Earthrise Prime laying dead, so you can give him his terminal diagnosis there from the movie. But yeah, in terms of transformation, first thing, we can go to his little tertiary tank mode. You just want to rotate the legs down like this, rotate them at the hips, not at the thigh swivel, and then rotate them around like that on the knees and just peg them in. There's a peg right here on what will be the arms, and then a little slot right there, just like that. And there you have him in his weird sort of extra tank mode, which is fine, I guess. I kind of admire this mode. It's stupid, but it's nice to have like a little transport mode for the guy that turns into the microscope. Doesn't have to look like anything specifically, just some way for him to get around, even though it doesn't look like it'd be particularly fast either. But, it's something. But yeah, to get on to the rest of the transformation, first thing you want to do is just close his little chest plate here. Although you could keep it like that too. I think that looks maybe marginally better, but whatever. And then just straighten out the legs here and bring them down like that. Fold up the toes, untab the arms from the side here and just leave them out like that for now. Take the scope itself and rotate it like that, and then rotate it up so it's sitting properly. And then this section on the other side also folds into the shoulder like that. And then the arms will come up and clip over those pieces like that. The hands are just inside the forearms here. Will click into place. On this side, it's like a lot tighter, so it's a bit more of like a violent click, but that's okay. And then the head, sometimes I've got difficulty getting the head out because it's kind of hard to get a grip on it, and it does kind of lock into this position pretty well. It's loosened up a little bit the more times I've done it, but it just takes a bit of a bit of finesse, and then rotate it around. And there you have Perceptor in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks pretty accurate, pretty great. It's always been a pretty simple design to get from A to B for his, his microscope mode, which is basically just him with his knees bent. So pretty easy to get him into this position, but he does get the job done, and he looks really nice. In terms of articulation, the scope here clips in a little bit, so if you want to rotate it up like that, then you can, which is nice because like if it's like this, he really just has no peripheral vision out of his left side at all. So it's like, okay, cool, now he can see to the left. That's valuable. His head is on a ball joint here. Also, the scope, I wish it kind of locked into place a little bit better, because I can never get it to sit like totally totally flush. It just sits at like half a degree of an angle to the right a little bit, and it bothers me a bit, but not the end of the world. But yeah, the head's on a ball joint, so it can rotate around. You get a little bit of wiggle back and forth. Shoulders are on ball joints, so you can rotate around and out to the side. Not thigh swivel, bicep swivel, 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, nothing at the wrists. Waist cut, hips can go forward, back, out to the side. You can also break his knee. I sort of wish that locked in place a little bit better too. They're not loose, it's just a little bit looser than the hip joint, so it can be kind of easy to kind of move it out of the way, but not too big a deal. But yeah, hips can go out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel, pretty good deep knee bend, and an ankle tilt. So yeah, pretty good posability. I mean, he's a pretty simple robot, so like working in all those joints again is not much of a challenge for him. You can give him his weapon here, and he looks pretty good holding his little pistol. For storage, you can just peg it into the same spot that you could store it in the other mode. And what's nice about this too is one of the things that I don't love about him is he does kind of have this huge cavity in his back here. Sort of wish there was like an extra flap that folded up to hide that, but that would not be a terribly difficult thing to 3D print and make it. It would just need to have a little hinge to get out of the way for rotating the head down. But I don't usually care about like gaps and stuff like that, but that bothers me a little bit. But if you plug in the gun there, it does hide it a little bit, which is nice. In terms of comparisons, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe for that standard size comparison. Here he is again with Earthrise Prime, now not dead. And now let's bring on all of his fellow 1986 movie cast members. We got Ultra Magnus with some leg extensions there to make him a little taller. We got Rodimus, Springer and Blur, Wreck-Gar and Cup. Here, we'll put Wreck-Gar kind of in the back. Wheelie and RC, and then we'll toss in Grimlock there at the side as well, just so you can see. Pretty filled out cast there. Only a couple characters left. I mean, if you count Daniel in the exosuit and the other Dinobots, I mean, I could bring Slag on here, but it's not really worth it. He didn't have a lot of screen time with the Dinobots anyway. But yeah, pretty good movie cast here. I'm definitely enjoying a lot of these Studio Series 86 figures, even though not all of those figures are Studio Series 86, but they're clearly all designed to go with each other. And yeah, just in general, Perceptor is just a pretty solid figure. In terms of like problems, like I wish the scope maybe sat a little bit more flush, but that doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult to fix. Maybe just shave this piece down a little bit so it can rotate a little bit more. The cavity seems like something that'd be easy to fix with an add-on part. The knees not locking is not really that big a deal. And yeah, I mean, otherwise he's just like a pretty adequate and simple figure. I mean, like I said, like, the alt mode is really just him kind of minorly folded up. So like, it was always a pretty easy design to get on spot on. And they've pretty much done it. I mean, it's not complicated. There's not anything like overly flashy about this figure. It's just an adequate Perceptor that, has good articulation, pretty good joints for the most part, and looks pretty good in all three of his modes. I mean, if you don't think the tank mode looks good, that's really more of a design thing rather than this figure thing. It looks about as good as it usually does, and same really with the microscope mode as well. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned it. You can actually see through the scope of the microscope. I mean, it doesn't have like lenses or anything, so it doesn't magnify. It's just got two clear pieces of plastic. So kind of cool. Didn't need to do that, but they did. So just another little extra bell and whistle with this figure. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about him. Again, just a pretty adequate and well done figure. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series 86 Perceptor.